Welcome to the Activate and Illuminate podcast with Mel. I'm your host, Mel, and together we'll be chatting with everyday people living extraordinary lives. So they've learned how to activate their potential and are helping to illuminate others. So I hope you will join me in listening to their journey. And if you like what you hear, and I think you will, I'd love for you to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends and family. The world could use a lot more activation and illumination. Have a great day. Today, you are going to hear from a very interesting lady out of Calgary, Alberta, who has spent years and years researching everything frequency, sound. She has developed a system called the Infinite Energy Method. And I'll give you a little bit of her bio here. She has a Bachelor of Science in Natural Health and Nutrition, a master's degree in Integral Health and Life Physics, and she's nearing the completion of a PhD in Subtle Energy Physics. So she is a very learned scholar, but essentially what this all boils down to is that she has spent years figuring out how our bodies can heal using sound and frequency. Now, I love Rhea. I know her personally. I've personally experienced a lot of what she's talking about. And I will tell you that this is going to really turn on your mind as to what's possible as far as how our bodies heal and maybe how we can feel a lot better moving forward in the future. So listen to Rhea and love to hear your thoughts on this one. So Rhea, tell us a little bit about what you do for people, and then we'll kind of get into just how powerful this modality, and you've actually taken it to a whole new level and actually created tools in this modality of sound healing and vibration healing. So tell us, start from scratch, tell us anything you want, and tell us what you can do.
Will do. Well, thanks, Melanie, and thank you very much for having me on your podcast today. So I got started in this out of, I think, interest to improve my parents' health. So I was born into a family with a dad who wasn't well, and by the time I was 7, he had open heart surgery. So I became very attuned to his health. As well, we have interesting kind of abilities that run on my mom's side of the family. So I found that my connections to my parents were probably deeper than what, a lot of people experience. And you might want to use that word empath. I think a lot of us, people who are sensitive or empathic, it'll stem out of something from your childhood where you feel a need to keep tabs on somebody or keep check on somebody. So as time kind of went by, I became an architect and I did that for many years, but always had that interest in the parapsychology or the paranormal, interest in sound. I used to play in a band when I was a kid, so we did that for many, many years and had a couple of songs on alternative radio stations. So everything sort of started to mix and mingle in. And then by the time I got into my 20s, I decided I wanted to do some retraining, and that's when I went back and part-time did the Bachelor of Science. I had kind of thought maybe I'd like to become a naturopath. But once I made it through that degree and did a little bit more investigating into naturopathic school, I found that for me, it just felt a little bit too much still like Western medicine. It was just that really still reductionist science-based thinking where we're going to use supplements instead of pharma for the most part. And so it still didn't really resonate with me. And then like I say, just through taking courses and meeting people, I discovered a university in California that was a consciousness-based science school. So they were still doing all the scientific rigor and experiments, but it took that consciousness component and married it back into science. And so I sort of feel like that's, as far as my education and knowledge, going through those programs, the master's and PhD programs, is really, I think, what's contributed to my understanding of how things need to work together and not apart. So it's that integrative approach that we all have a piece of the truth and a piece of the healing puzzle, And when we work together, we can do magic to help people shift their problems, their pain, their suffering, their diseases. So that's like a little bit of, I guess, what got me started and what got me interested. And then why I'm so passionate about it now is, we sort of see this healthcare system falling apart on a daily basis, people having to wait 6 and 7 years for things like hip replacements. It's getting a little bit scary out there. And so I feel that some of this chronic disease can be remediated in other ways, and likely would be better to be remediated in other ways other than pharma.
100% agree. 100% agree. So have you ever, of all the things you've experienced, is there anything that you would say that you haven't been able to affect or to help in some way through this method?
Yes. Yeah. So when people are really committed to the disease, if they've defined themselves by the disease and they're just looking for another external source to fix them, that's problematic. I find that the people that are successful in healing from even the most terminal of diseases, it's because there is a desire to make the energetic shift in their life. So they're willing to let the things go that are toxic in their life, whether that be food or relationships or jobs, family members. Those are the people that get better. The people that can't step away from the emotional and mental and spiritual contributors are the ones who unfortunately will continue down their road of disease, and maybe some of them even eventually pass. So that's been, I have noticed that over the years that the ones that successfully heal themselves, it's because there is a passion and a drive to want to correct all the imbalances in the 4 pillars. It's not always just about the body. I do a lot of studying of Russian medicine, and I really can tell you that they're so much farther ahead of us than we would want to believe. And they really look at the human being in the 4 pillars. So the body is only 25%, and there's the mind, the emotions, and the spirit are the other components. And so this is where I sort of feel like with chronic diseases and disorders, Western medicine maybe fails a lot of people, is because they're really only looking at that biochemical, physical aspect. And they're not really looking at what's going on emotionally in a person's life, or mentally, their mental health, or their spiritual health. And believe it or not, they have equal portions in your health and healing. So it really takes that consciousness-based approach where you're looking at you're meeting people where they're at and looking at the consciousness level that they're at. That's part of the shift too, is a lot of times awakening them to the idea that there really is more than just surgeries and pills.
Yeah. So you mentioned the Russian system is much further ahead than us. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I've trained in a modality. It's called the Bio-Well. I guess it really is its own modality, but it's an EPI camera, so an electrophotonic imaging camera, and it's based on Kirlian photography. So what we do with that is we'll have the client insert each of their fingers into the device one by one, and we take pictures of the biophotonic discharge around each of the fingertips. And it's a cloud-based system, so it's an intelligent, kind of self-learning system as well. The more practitioners that put in scans, the smarter the system gets. So there's an aspect of it where you read the biograms, kind of like a radiologist would read an X-ray, and then there's an aspect of it where it'll spit out information as to the stress and the energy in the system. And it's my understanding that in Russia, many of the family doctors actually have these in their offices, and they will scan clients every time they come in for a checkup. And as well, they're much more educated in using nutrition. So the first line of defense is always nutritional. The second line of defense would be, like supplements, vitamins, that type of thing. And so you find that the population of Russia, there's really less than maybe 10 or 15% of the people that are on any sort of pharmaceutical, because they're able to nip things in the bud before they progress to a state where they need, some heavy-handed intervention. So that's one thing I like. And the other thing I really like about Russian medicine is that Russians do a lot of cleanses. It's like a it's a cultural thing. So most families will have like an infrared sauna, or they have a community center that has these huge saunas and pools that are different temperatures. So they'll do a lot of that, hot pool, medium pool, cold pool, and do a lot of the infrared sauna. So they're always detoxing. They do annual liver detox, gallbladder detox, intestinal detox. So they know the value of keeping the insides clean, where we sort of value, our exteriors. We've been, taught that it's how you look is what's most important. And in Russia, it's kind of the opposite. It's what's on the inside, literally, that is most important. And when you're really good and balanced on the inside, then the outside kind of will follow. So rather than, caking stuff on the inside, or surgeries or Botox or all these things that we think is necessary for women in our culture and in the West, they don't do any of that. They consider it actually crazy.
Yeah, I can see that. It's interesting to see where that trend has gone the last 10 years.
Totally, right?
And the younger and younger and younger women experiencing it. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, honey, you don't have wrinkles yet.
Yeah, if that's a wrinkle, that's exactly right. And like I say, unfortunately, those chemicals and stuff that people pump their body full of, it does affect your health. So really, beauty should come from within. And I feel like I say the few instructors that I've trained under that have come from Russia, I've learned a lot about their culture and just the strictness that they have with themselves when it comes to eating and eating clean food and getting exercise. And it's really part of their culture. The couch potato thing just doesn't really happen over there. It's totally different.
Yeah. So, from my experience, so I've experienced you as a teacher, and I've taken some of your classes, and I will tell you, for anybody that's interested in learning more about some of these different modalities, Rhea gives a fantastic program and gives people the tools and the techniques to be able to not only just experience it, but to be able to help some of the people in their life. And myself, I had come with a little bit of an understanding of sound therapy, and I'd taken different sound therapies before, but what I experienced was something a little bit different when I came to you in the sense of tuning the biofield and just this whole wealth of information and this sound of listening to the forks in different areas that I hadn't necessarily been trained to listen to before. And it just blew even though I had that background and that understanding of how powerful sound healing can be and how powerful it can, fix physical things, mental, emotional things. What I saw was something a little bit different when I experienced what you offered. And what I have observed in my personal sessions with you is that you are able to pick up on small discrepancies in my energy, be it, childhood, be it emotional, physical, spiritual, all from the sound of the fork. And it just made me think about sound healing in a completely different way. And just you would do it until that sound frequency sounded, like you wanted it to.
Right.
And I had never experienced that type of sound healing before. I find it super powerful, and I felt a huge shift in my capacity to be grounded, to feel like myself after our sessions. And so to anyone that is maybe thinking about delving into this more, maybe tell us a little bit about some of what you've developed.
Mm-hmm.
What makes you a little different than maybe some of the, other things that we see out there, and some of the tell us what makes your tools special.
Fair. Yeah, fair enough. Because there is lots of tuning fork stuff out there, and you're absolutely right. I think what I've developed is definitely quite a bit different. So I mean, I'll go through some differentiation points. First of all, with I call it the infinite energy method, because we all have this unlimited infinite potential, and it actually came a little bit from reading some of the Biology of Belief, Lipton's book, Bruce Lipton, and how in there he talks about our cell potential. So like most people will have roughly 50 trillion cells, and at its maximum potential, each of those cells has a 1.4 millivolt potential. So that gives us like 70 trillion millivolts of energy for healing. Like that can power a lot. And it's tapping into that infinite potential. So what I learned is, again, kind of through going through university, we had to take a lot of religious study classes. Per degree, you're having to take 4 courses. So I'm up to 8 now. And what I figured out is that every tradition, whether it's, a religious tradition or a medical-based tradition, every tradition has some truths. And every tradition has also been polluted by whomever or whatever is organizing our planet. And really, it's when you put everything together, put it all into a big soup pot and stir it up and let all those truthful bits float to the top, that we find the power in everything. So I've studied, traditional Chinese medicine and chakra theory, some Vedic stuff, and some of these more maybe shaman-based cultures where they're doing a lot of that type of healing. And like I say, there's aspects of it that work. And it's really when you're able to see the truth of that and then combine it in such a way, you end up with a really powerful modality. So, when I'm teaching practitioners or when I'm doing sessions myself, it's heavily based on testing. There's a lot of applied kinesiology techniques in there where we're going in and we're testing and correcting things, polarities, dehydration. We're checking all of the alarm points that associate or affiliate with the meridians of the body. So we're working on many different large energy groups. And so in the subtle energy that I'm studying in my PhD, with this modality, I work with the chakras. So that's one subtle energy group. We work with the biofield. So that's more of an electromagnetic type field that's generated, most people believe, by the heart. I think a little bit also by the brain activity. We're working with the meridians again, and then we're working with the subtle bodies. So it's energy systems that are taken from different traditions, but when you look at it in context to each other, it gives you a lot more opportunities. When you're doing your testing, it gives you more intel, and when you're doing your correcting, it gives you more power to be able to shift. So I find a lot of these modalities where they really focus in on one thing, like I'm only focusing on the biofield. It's like that 4 pillars of health that we talked about. You're really only like focusing on 25%. You really do need to look at the biofield, the chakras, the meridians, and the subtle bodies in context. And you need to understand how the dynamic of those subtle energies transfers information from out to in and in to out. And so when I'm teaching these classes, that's a big part of it. The other thing that makes this modality really different is that we do a lot of intuitive development in every level of the class, because that's what makes, each practitioner special and individual and powerful, is when you play into your own clair abilities. So somebody might be, one client or one practitioner might be a lot more clairvoyant, another might be more clairaudient, another might be more claircognizant. So it's to help people also along the way to develop those clairs, so that when you are striking the tuning fork and with the intention that you're listening to an energetic aspect of your client, you'll get it in a way that's meaningful to you. So maybe some people will see colors, or they'll see like scenes over a movie screen. Other people will hear something speaking to them. And we don't call in guides or spirits or loved ones or gods or Buddhas or anything like that. I teach people to connect to their highest self. So, in the Vedic tradition, your highest self represents that aspect of your soul that has completed all of its lessons and has returned to source. So if I'm talking to anybody, that's who I want to talk to. That's who I can trust to give me the best advice. I think these practices where they're calling in guides or whatever, it's who do you know who you're speaking to? What subtle energy are you speaking to? And if you're having an off day, are you calling in an entity? And so I don't want to approach that or deal with that. So I just tell people keep religion out of it and just go strictly for that energy connection. So there's a lot of things we do that are different, and there's many levels, and each level builds on the next level. So your knowledge base, as well as your understanding of how to feel and intuit and sense your client's energies, and then how you incorporate the forks, also, using them kind of as a stethoscope or using them in that way that it's helping you to get information, but also then turning around and using the correct forks for shifting the energies that need to be shifted. So we do all of our corrections through sound. We don't do any hands-on touch or anything like that. And I will just say, like, as a final kind of comment, I also feel that that's important to create that separation between the practitioner and the client, because what I have found, myself as well, I used to practice a lot of different hands-on modalities, and you really have to keep your energy strong. If you're in those modalities where you're, calling yourself a healer, that means you have to have enough chi or prana to be the jumper cable for that client, because otherwise you're putting your hands on somebody and you're draining them of their energy. So in this modality, we don't do hands-on. The only thing that touches the person, the client, is the tuning fork.
Yeah.
So that way there's that separation. You keep your energy, they keep theirs, and you're just helping them shift. And I find it a lot more powerful, honestly, since I stopped holding acupuncture points, or, like you say, doing all the things that I was trained in a classical energy medicine type thing. I feel that there's that energetic boundary where I don't take on a client's pain, or don't wake up in the middle of the night, with ruminant thoughts about them. I feel like that touch component, for some people, especially if their energy is weak themselves, then you can transfer that weakness to your client. So this way it's good, because it's a win-win. Every time I do a tuning fork session, I'm holding the forks and I'm also listening. So I'm getting that energy too. So we get stronger together. It's a real collaborative kind of modality where you're working together with your client, rather than you being the deliverer or having that responsibility of having to think you're any sort of healer. We're the Sherpa, we're the guide, we're the ones with the knowledge that helps to guide the person that we're helping. And so, like, for me, like I say, I don't really subscribe to this healer thing, and I don't really think that anybody needs to put that kind of pressure on themselves to think that they need to be a healer of another person. You just have to show them how to heal themselves.
Yeah, bingo.
Yeah. Let's give the power back to each of us, right? I don't want to be another white coat taking power. I want to be somebody who shows you how to be powerful in yourself.
Yeah. And sovereign in your own energy.
100%. Yes.
Yeah. So you are based out of Calgary, Alberta. But
yes.
Now I will just say that you have, for anybody listening and is like, okay, so where's she from? Can I access her? This sounds fascinating. How do I do this? Just so that you know, Rhea does fantastic distance work. And, for anybody that is wondering, distance, how does that work? I would actually say, from a personal perspective, both being involved in this type of frequency stuff before, and from a recipient perspective, I would say that it's actually even better sometimes at a distance. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I totally agree with you. There are circumstances where the sessions I do over video, and it's not like I say where, one of those kind of things where, again, you're just phoning somebody and saying, oh, I'm going to do a session on you, and then phoning them at the end. I do them by video because I need to see you. I need to see your reactions, and I need to connect with your energy. And so what I do on my treatment table is I'll just place like crystals or something that represents each of the chakras, and the knees and the feet and the palms of the hands. So I basically know what your anatomy is like on my table. And I can conceptualize, and then I ask if I can bring in your energy, and we just work strictly on that. And honestly, like, some of those sessions it's like you say, they're more powerful than the in-person, because you don't have the distraction of the physical body there. So you can really hone in and focus on these subtle bodies and really get into the energy of it. And so some of my biggest success stories have been through distance. I have one lady that I talk about in many of my podcasts who was really having difficulty with her lungs. They really weren't able to diagnose anything specific, but had told her, that her lungs were kind of in that 20th percentile. And we did all of her sessions over the course of a year, never met her once in person. And now her lungs are so much better. She's up, I believe, in the 70th percentile. She's lost a lot of weight because, of course, then she was able to get off of her prescription medications that were causing weight gain. And so she's lost a lot of weight and has a lot more energy. So, it's those type of things that you see that you can't make this stuff up. She wasn't doing anything else other than our sessions together and, working on changing her eating habits and that type of thing. But literally it was working with one person. She didn't want to muddy the waters. So it's working with one person and then going back and checking in with her medical team. And so, like I say, you just can't make that kind of stuff up because you're not seeing that person in person. You're just doing it via distance. So I've done a lot of studies, and that's the other great thing about the university that I go to is we are heavy into doing studies. And so I run little clinical trials or pilot studies quite often. And they'll end up making their way into a paper because my findings are so significant. And some of these little pilot studies, I've actually been asked to do full clinical trials because the P rating, the significance was so unbelievable that it would make an incredible full scale study. So that's the other thing. Yeah, so that's the other thing that's like different about me. So like I'll give you an example. A few years ago, I did a study with psilocybin. So again, with that consciousness and energy component. So I took purified water. And I had 3 containers of purified water, and I did a baseline with my Bio-Well because you can also purchase a water sensor for it. So it'll sense, you can pick up the energy in the water. So we did the baseline and then separated it into 3 jars. And one jar, I spent a certain amount of time, I think it was 20 minutes, and you put your hands around the jar and you would send it love. And the other jar, you put your hands around it and you send it hate. And then the third jar was the control jar, and then you measure the energy. So in the neutral jar, you would have a certain number. Then in the love jar, it was quite a bit higher. The energy of the water was significantly higher. So you're creating like a structured water, right, with your emotions, which is like what Masaru Emoto was researching, but I just did it in a different way. And then the hate jar was really low. It was below my control sample, so it had a very low energy. And then what I did was I added 1 milliliter of golden teacher psilocybin spores suspended in purified water. So I added that and I left it for 24 hours. And then I did another baseline with the Bio-Well. And so the neutral jar remained within about 1 joule of the same energy. The love jar stayed roughly the same. It went up just a hair, maybe half a joule. But the hate jar came up to be in between the neutral and the love. So it increased the joules of energy by like 10 or 12 joules. So what you can kind of infer from that is by microdosing, a person that has a lot of negative energies, whether that's what's driving their depression or mood disorders, but anybody who's got a lot of that negative energy or receiving negative energy from people in their life or their environment, the microdosing of psilocybin will neutralize that and bring up the vibration of your water. So then it's more electrolytically effective. You're structuring your water by using microdosing psilocybin. And like I say, my P was like 0.0006, like it was highly significant.
Wow.
So then that would make a great study of like maybe 500 or 1,000 people. Because that way it should make its way into the psychology where stop giving people antidepressants and all these terrible drugs that make them more suicidal. Use what nature is giving you. Do a trial on several different strains of psilocybin and find the right one. I used Golden Teacher just because that one is known to have a calming and sedative effect. But there's many different strains that you could try and determine which is the best for different types of psychological issues. That's more where I think we need to go with medicine, is going back to to the earth that creates vibrational plants that we can exist with. When you do like color spectrography, like photography of like a plant versus a pill, like the pill isn't giving off any light. We're light beings, like, believe it or not. When you eat food, people always think, oh, it's the food. I'm eating the food and that's the food is making me strong. It's the vibration, the color, and the frequency in your food that you're actually taking out. Humans are light eaters. We're really not. It's not what you think. Your digestive system is just a really crude form of a more advanced thing, like a plant that has learned to eat the light, which, who knows? I kind of feel maybe that's potential for humans in the future. Maybe we won't need to eat things physically anymore. We'll just be able to assimilate light.
Well,
your mitochondria will change. It'll be more like a plant.
Huh. Interesting.
And there are people out there doing it. There are people who are just drinking water and not really eating too much of anything, but they spend an inordinate amount of time in the sun absorbing all these different frequencies. So, like, it's interesting,
Yeah. I mean, they say light and sound is the future. Mm-hmm. Light and sound. And I actually think it might have been a lot more of our past than we even care to understand, or we're maybe starting to understand. But tell us, in your perfect world, how somebody with issues and with physical things happening, what would they start with? Like, for somebody out there listening that has got things happening to them,
right?
What's their first step?
Well, I mean, with a lot of new clients, I'll do, a little meet and greet with them over the phone. And so I can, because I have clients fill out an intake form. So if they don't know where to start, I have a lot of offerings. So if they really don't know where to start, if nothing's kind of jumping out at them, but they want to get started, we can go over where they're at in their life, and I can give them a recommendation of where I feel is best for them. Because again, everything is a relationship. So it isn't going to be all physical or all mental or all emotions. There'll be aspects of it. And this is what I love about how in my method, I incorporate some traditional Chinese medicine concepts, especially the 5 elements theory, because you're not looking for a root cause or a blame. That's a Western medicine thought where there's always one thing that is the blame. And really the reality is it's a relationship. So whether we look at it through the 5 elements or the 4 pillars, it's a relationship. But what I will say is, like, sometimes people need support first at the body level. So maybe we need to fix some stuff at the body level, some pain things or some digestive things, before we can look at the emotional component. Because if you don't remedy some of the body stuff first, and there is a lot of emotional stuff, and we do a lot of biofield work and we drag in all these emotions, you could end up, experiencing it as greater symptoms. And it's the same thing the other direction. If it is too much of an emotional problem, we might not want to start there because it could exacerbate things. So maybe we want to get energy shifting in the themes of their life. Maybe we want to work with the chakras first. Maybe they have big themes in their life, like nobody loves me, nobody sees me when I come into the room, I'm invisible. So some of those bigger, or I can't manifest anything. I have all these great ideas about a business, but I just can't get it off the ground. Or I keep starting businesses, but I just can't get through the thought process. It's like a reverse problem. Those are all the big themes. So we would want to probably work with the chakras and the energy bodies, because that's an in-out problem, right? Just like with the computer, garbage in, garbage out. So we want to remedy those problems in those energy centers first. So like you say, I really sort of look at where everybody's at and what it is they're wanting to shift, and then we'll kind of attack it from there. And so no 2 sessions are ever alike either with infinite energy. We learn, or I teach protocols that you will mix and match down the road. So you won't be just doing a chakra session, or you won't just be doing a biofield session. You'll be incorporating, testing and correcting aspects so that you can know where people are at in their journey. And then we record everything on the 5 elements wheel all the time so that we know how the energies are shifting. We can see which meridians are now coming off the plate, ones that were maybe irregular or over or under, they're going to remedy. So it's a real, like I say, there's no sort of easy, short answer for that. It really, is kind of looking at the intake form and then having like that 5 or 10 minute conversation and then making a recommendation. I think we should start here and then do this next. And then as we progress, we can do this.
One of the key points that I took away, I mean, there was so many good ones in what you just said, but changing your own energy can change your business, can change your life.
Absolutely.
Can change everything about yourself. And to me, like what I feel like there has been an absolute war on our energy in the last, long time, but it has been that has been the most important thing is to how do you hold your own energy amidst, chaos, amidst news, amidst all the things that we've dealt with in the last few years, many, many years, maybe your whole life. And that holding your own energy and being able to keep that frequency strong, which basically changes absolutely everything about all your experiences.
Yep.
Changes everything about how your health, how you perceive things. It's probably going to change your friends, your circumstances, your marriage. So like to me, that's like the most important thing that you could possibly do is keep your own energy strong.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And, the answer to all of that, it's part of what we teach through exercises. So, so once we do, like I say, like a session and we have a session tracker where we record everything, then there becomes a homework component. So for everything except for probably the biofield session and maybe the tuning with brainwaves, the rest of them have homework. So we will assign, 1 to 4 different energy type exercises. And it's a lot like Qigong or it could be tracing meridians, working with the meridians. And that's where people will continue to make the shifts at home. So that's one aspect of it. So we'll get you working with your energies at home. When you come to me, the sessions are, like I say, they're an assessment, a correction, and figure out what's wrong, as well as get you perfectly back in balance so that when you leave, everything is back in balance. And then it's your work morning and evening. So I need people to do like 3 to 5 minutes. That's it. 3 to 5 minutes morning and evening when they brush their teeth or when they have like their breakfast or a snack, but attach it to a habit. And that's when people see huge changes, the ones who take their exercises seriously. And then the second part of that, I would say, is teaching people to stop looking out here for the answers and to go in here, because the truth resides only within you. And that is the truth that is meant for you in your incarnation. So this incarnation, there is a truth that you need to go in and find, and you're never going to find it out there. You're not going to find it asking people's opinions. You're not going to find it on the news. You're not going to find it in books. All of that's a part of it because we're here to learn discernment right now. I feel that we're in the age of discernment. Like with the craziness out there, it is really putting everybody to the test to discern what is truth and what is lies. And then there are days where the lies overtake the truth by leaps and bounds. And knowing
Amen.
what to give your energy to and what not to, because there's so many opinions now, so many things going on, from politics to religion to schools, education and the healthcare. There's so much. You could literally be consumed 24 hours a day with your face stuck to TikTok, just seeing what everybody else thinks about it all. But in the end, what really only matters is what you think of it all, because your truth about your life and your incarnation is literally all that matters. And you have to get to that point where you hold that truth sacred and you don't let the world shake you. And when you can get to that point, the world's a beautiful place to live in. I don't see the ugly anymore. I don't see any of it. I don't see any of it because I choose not to. I choose to see what I want to see. And people can say, oh, well, you're sticking your head in the sand. Well, no, because the energy that I'm making versus the energy that somebody's making being stuck in fear and worrying, I can offset a lot of negative people. They are the negative people.
Yeah.
So there's a vibrational frequency to all of that. And if your listeners want to know more about that, it's a book called Power versus Force by David R. Hawkins. It'll be one of the best books you ever read, I guarantee you. And it'll give you a real...
Tell me that name again. I'm going to
Yeah,
write this.
it's called Power versus Force. And it's written by Dr. David R. Hawkins, who's since passed. But like I say, it's one of the best books you'll ever read. And what he does is he uses applied kinesiology to calibrate all the human emotions. So right from the most horrible of hate and shame and fear, all the way up to, like an avatar, like a Jesus or a Buddha, which would calibrate, and he gives it a number. So if you ask yourself, well, why is humanity going through this at this time? Because our consciousness was kind of in and around that 200. It's been in around, a little bit under 200, a little bit over. And I think prior to 2020, we were actually moving into that 225. So 200 is the level of courage. And when humanity collectively becomes courageous, it becomes a little more difficult to run agendas. So then enter 2020 and the whole scamdemic. And let's get everybody back into fear so that we can keep their energy suppressed and we can keep them, you can control people when they're in fear. You can't control people when they've hit courage. So if there wasn't these whatever is at the top, and I say whatever because I don't think it's people, because I don't know psychopathic pedophiles. I don't have any in my circle of friends. I don't think that's a normal human behavior. I think whatever really is running this planet is different than us. And I think they have different values. And this is where, like I say, it's all about, pardon me, it's all about that energetic balance of getting to that courage and then moving beyond it. So to give you an example, like in Hawkins' book, he talks about getting to the level of 500, which is really great. If a human can make it to the level of 500 in a lifetime, you can offset 1 million people who are at these lower vibrations, these lower vibrational frequencies like fear and shame and guilt. You can offset them. So like 2 people that have reached 500 can offset a city like Calgary. We can offset the whole city. And so you can start to see the tipping point becomes a lot less than what we think it is. If you had 1,000 people worldwide that were at that level of 500, that would likely be enough to put us into a tipping point of higher consciousness. And consciousness isn't magic. It's your conscious awareness. It is what you are conscious of. So as you become more conscious of more things, your consciousness shifts. So like I say, I always recommend that book to clients and students because it gives you a real high level understanding of where we need to shift our human epigenetic field to get with the program. We don't need to be groveling down in these lower vibrational frequencies of whatever, evil elite families and their overlords are running this planet. We can break away from that and take away their power. I don't know if anybody watched that movie Ants, but the ants realized that, and then the evil flicker guy, he says, if only they realize that they outnumber us 100 million to 1. Yeah. Well, come on, folks, we outnumber them 100 million to 1. Like, let's get with the program and not stop feeding your energy to things that you cannot change and start feeding your energy to good. Then our whole epigenetic field will shift and healing. The question of healing will become a thing of the past because I think as your consciousness shifts, like I don't get sick anymore. And it's not that I have days where I'm not groveling down. Sometimes something will put me back into fear, but I'd like to think most of the time I'm hovering between 375 and 500. I've really changed. And so I don't get sick anymore. I don't get low energy anymore. I rarely have a day where I just want to like hang out in my pajamas. I accomplish so much in a day. It's like I'm in my 20s again. I have just energy to burn. And everybody can have that. When you shift your conscious perception of everything changes.
Well, I know we've talked. I was recently at a Bruce Lipton event listening to him that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And everything that he talked about from a cellular perspective and a quantum physics perspective, you just summed up. Right. You just summed up. Our thoughts become everything. They
Yeah.
become our field, they become things, they become our body, they become our friends, they become our work, they become our environment. And they absolutely have the power to shift. And so does love. And so, yeah, is there anything that you feel like that we haven't touched on, Rhea, or that you'd like to elaborate on?
Like I say, just try different things. That would always be my opinion, is try different methods and modalities, especially if you're facing a healing crisis. There's lots of wonderful people out there who figured a lot of interesting things out. So, really do your research before you make a decision about your health and your healing. I think you should look at all aspects. And there's nothing wrong with a team approach. Like I say, I think that Western medicine is brilliant for many things. If I got into a car accident and severed my leg, I would want somebody waving a tuning fork over it. I'd want the best surgeons. And yet we all have a place and a role in this health and healing. And for heaven's sakes, let's start to work together and utilize everybody's magic together on teams like they do in other countries. We have the ability to shift that here just by being open-minded and accepting that there are people that know things that you don't. I know there are people, medical professionals, that know way more about medicine and surgery than I do, but I'd like to think that I know a lot more about physics and subtle energies, and there's something to contribute there, because really the way of the future, and I've known this ever since I was a little kid. I remember talking to my mom in the backyard and saying, I just know that in the future, healing is going to be done in the field around the body. We're not going to be cutting people up anymore. There's going to be a time when we're going to look back and say, oh my God, I cannot believe that we cut people up and did this, egregious stuff to their person. So like that's coming. Might not be, yeah, like it might not be in our lifetime, but I think that is coming, where we will understand that greater power of sound, frequency, and vibration and light, and the culmination of all of that. So like I say, if you're facing a healing crisis, you'd be best to have a team approach. Get some other people in there that have some knowledge that can maybe help you on the emotional, spiritual, and mental front while you're going through your physical stuff with your Western medicine practitioners.
All right. So for people now, we're definitely going to include all your links and all your stuff in our show notes and stuff here, but just so people have the audio, and tell us how they can reach you, Rhea.
So you can reach me through my website. It's infiniteenergyclinic.com, all one word. You can also email me at infiniteenergy@shaw.ca. And I do have Facebook, although I don't spend a lot of time on socials, I'll be honest. I more put the energy into my website so that there's a lot of good resources and information on there. As well, there might be an infinite energy practitioner in your area, so you can come to my website and take a look at the practitioner page. There's only a few people on there so far, but there's quite a few more that need to be put up over the next little while here that have graduated, so we'll get some more people up on there. And yeah, any questions that you might have or whatever, just feel free to reach out and we can have a chat.
And so there will be courses on there,
yes,
and different products as well, correct?
Yes, yeah, I do manufacture my own brand of tuning forks. I found a really wonderful company that makes a tuning fork that is not so brittle. I find some of the ones that are manufactured in the US, they use a very brittle alloy. And so after a period of time, maybe a year or two, you'll find in the U-shaped joint of the tuning fork that it gets cracking. Ours are a little bit more elastomeric nature. The alloy that we use is not so brittle. So your tuning forks last a lot longer. And we do things to like manufacturing them, all of our forks, with long handles. So you're not trying to hold some little stupid stubby handle with this big heavy fork. And then other than that, definitely the courses are online. I will post when courses come up, but typically I run the courses a little bit differently. What you do is get yourself on a wait list for a particular level. And then when we have 4 to 6 people, I keep the classes really small so that I can really give you my full attention, and you're not wasting your money watching other people practice like these larger companies do. I've taken those courses and they're an absolute waste of your time and money. I keep it to a small number. And so what I do is once I have 4 to 6 people, we will decide together what date works best for everybody. So it really accommodates everybody's schedule, and I'm not trying to shoehorn you into this particular weekend or that particular weekend. We just more go with the flow of when everybody can make it. So yeah, this year started off with a bang. I've taught, my gosh, I think 5 classes already, and I've got another 2 coming up. And so there will be another level 1 for anybody who wants to get going. We do them in order. And so there will be another level 1 coming up. We're looking at March right now for a date. I think the end of March is when it's potentially scheduled. So definitely reach out. And like I say, we'll work together with all the students to pick a time that works for everybody.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Honestly, like, there's people that you meet in your life that have just, call it mastered techniques, or just, really embody everything that they are teaching. And I would say that you are one of those people for certain.
Well, thank you, Melanie.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Like I'm very glad that we met, and I'll always keep you near and dear. That's for darn sure.
Well, thank you for being on, and
thank you.
And I can't wait to see what you do in the future.